By the summer of 1873, tensions along the northern plains were high. The U.S. Army had established a network of forts across Dakota Territory to secure travel routes, support railroad surveys, and enforce the government's push to confine Native nations to reservations. Among these outposts was Fort Abraham Lincoln, perched on the bluffs above the Missouri River, across from present-day Bismarck, North Dakota. Built in 1872, it was a key military post, housing both infantry and cavalry units, including the famed 7th Cavalry Regiment. At the time, General Alfred Terry commanded the Department of Dakota, but Fort Lincoln itself was overseen by General Daniel "Dandy" Huston, an experienced infantry officer. Among the cavalrymen stationed there was Lieutenant Carlo De Rudio, a European revolutionary who had once fought under the ill-fated Emperor Maximilian in Mexico before emigrating to the United States and joining the U.S. Army. Known for his aristocratic manner and fierce dedication, De Rudio would later survive the Battle of the Little Bighorn. The region surrounding Fort Lincoln was still largely controlled by free-roaming Lakota bands, particularly the Hunkpapa Sioux, who had not yet been confined to reservations and saw the continued expansion of forts, roads, and railways as a direct threat to their sovereignty. Skirmishes were frequent, especially during surveying or escort missions into contested territory. On June 10, 1873, a detachment of cavalrymen under De Rudio was assigned to escort 2 Army engineers toward the Heart River area, a landscape of rolling hills, gullies, and buttes just south of present-day Mandan. It was during this mission that they were ambushed in force by Hunkpapa warriors. What follows is a first-hand account from John Charles Creighton, a soldier who rode in that detachment and survived the sudden engagement.
General Dandy was in command at the infantry post on the hill when an order came one day for a detail of cavalry to accompany a couple of engineers to a point on the Heart River. Accordingly, the detail was made up of 2 men from each troop of the 7th, making 20 mounted men under the command of Lieutenant De Rudio. This lieutenant came to this country first with Maximilian, who met such a tragic death after trying to set up an empire in Mexico. After the fiasco in Mexico, De Rudio became an officer in the United States Army and was sent out to the far western frontier post. We picked up the 2 engineers at the blockhouse on the west side of the stockade on the hill at Fort Abraham Lincoln and started toward the north through the hills. There are 2 buttes just south of the Welch farm, where the little bridge crosses the small creek. We were coming down toward the creek, and our small detail was directly between these 2 buttes when suddenly we were fired upon from ambush by at least 100 Hunkpapa Sioux. We stood our ground a short time, but as the Indians had pretty good rifles, and we were so completely outnumbered, we had to retire. The Indians continued to follow us and fired from the hills, hiding behind the rocks and buckbrush. When we arrived at the first blockhouse, General Dandy ordered us out to drive them off. This was the 10th of June, 1873, and it was a terribly hot day, but we rode out against them then, and after a pretty hot fight, succeeded in driving them off. They showed remarkable bravery, and we thought that every brave must have taken a vow to some big act that day. We do not know how many Indians were killed, but our Arikara scouts brought in 2 dead Hunkpapa Warriors scalps. The fight was a brisk one, but the soldiers did not lose any men. John Charles Creighton.